Your proclamation awaits your signature. And your correspondence, sire.
Bill, go to war with them, invade them, Bill, have those people killed. My nephews. Have them killed. And tax this dude into space. To be a king. With an entire kingdom at my fingertips. I shall be the envy of all history. Who else shall ever know such comfort? Babe? Will you get me those grapes?
Get your own grapes, you pig.
Clearly none.
When you hear the name Paradox, you might think, oh yeah, that company that makes those crazy complex strategy games, right? Well, you would be right. But the whole reason why you might even be able to hold this conversation is probably because of a game which came out 9 years ago. And that game is none other than Crusader Kings 2. You know, long ago, back when I was unfamiliar with Paradox games and lived only for Total War, graphics were key to me, including those massive cinematic battles of course. I didn't really get Paradox. But then, one fateful evening, one really late evening, I was browsing the Steam store, seeing that CK2 was on sale. And why? Well, because the Old Gods DLC had just come out, the first major expansion of CK2. The graphics were still kind of off-putting, but after hearing what people were saying about it, mainly how awesomely complex and fun it really was, I just had to check it out. What ultimately got me to purchase it though, were the absolutely incredible and campy ads for the game. They're essentially not gameplay trailers at all, but completely revolve around this one guy who acts as the same prince in every trailer, with every trailer showing you different parts and features of the game. Have a look and see what I mean.
Dude, I am most envious of my brother Joseph's holdings.
Well, we could...
No. I've got this, man. They have the law of pardonable inheritance there, right? So, we assassinate Joseph. His lands are divided between his kids. We ally with the oldest son. We invade the lands of his idiot son. Dude, it is most hot. Go and open that window. Ah! Oh man, is that as far as that window opens?
My lord, the Earl of Roy is outside. He has the 10,000 men that you so wisely gave him last spring. It seems he intends to claim your throne.
Why would he do that?
Well, it was your decision to tax the dude into space.
That doesn't sound like me.
At the same time, you did covet his wife, sire.
Covet? Covert?
It was what you were doing to her, sire, repeatedly. We could...
I have the biggest castle!
I am the richest ruler in the realm.
And I've raised the largest army the world has ever seen. Yeah! I've got archers! And knights! I got dudes with two-handed swords! High five!
This is why the Pope has selected you for the honor to lead, finance, and organize our next crusade.
My liege. High five?
Stick it up your...
They're just so insanely charming, and I wish Paradox continued to make some trailers which retain this campy format. Anyway, here's the trailer for the Old Gods DLC, which had me laugh out loud at the end. It's all sort of a refined, chaotic good, if you know what I mean. So, Crusader Kings 2. I do admit I had to watch hours and hours of YouTube videos in order to understand this stuff when I first began, but gosh darn if it wasn't worth it. This game opened my eyes to what a grand strategy game could really be. I came into Crusader Kings 2 having mostly played Total War, which were very easy to understand in comparison. CK2 was just so complex, and offered so many possibilities and varied gameplay, that it hooked me almost right away. So let's dive into why that was, and how these mechanics actually work. Crusader Kings 2 is a grand strategy game, but it's actually very different from other Paradox games in that it's first and foremost not just a map painter. CK2 is actually all about dynasties and families, and yes, you can paint a map, and yes, it is a lot of fun, but again, the hilarity of this game comes from the complexities underneath the conquering and the warfare. In CK2, you're not playing as a state, you merely find yourself in one. You're actually playing as a person, yourself if you'd like, with everything that entails. You're a person with a family in this game, and so is virtually everyone else. If you're playing as a somewhat famous person, you can even trace their lineage as far back as they come. Now the thing here is that people are what makes up Crusader Kings 2, but each person also has a position, and might even have claims to positions. A king owns the title of king, for example, and also the land they personally hold, including titles they have claim to which they're not yet in possession of. This system was a game changer for me, because it impacts the entire game. In CK2, a king is not an absolute king. He doesn't rule over the entire realm with an iron fist. Well, at least not as long as your crown authority is low anyway. Instead of playing as the Kingdom of France, you're actually kind of playing as the king of the French, so to speak. You see, you only hold a handful of provinces in the kingdom that actually belongs to you. Every other province is held by your vassals, which can be more or less loyal to you. In other words, let's say you're the King of France. Instead of then having full control of the kingdom, you must navigate your vassals, which are not separate state entities, but people holding the titles of dukes and counts inside your kingdom. This in itself was a revolutionary revelation for me back in the day, and it's still a concept I absolutely love, because it not only pits you against other states, but it forces you to balance the power and relationships inside your own. These vassals all have their own goals and aims, of course, and can even revolt against you for your titles, should you rule unsatisfactory, which lends another dimension of gameplay to the experience. As with kingdoms being more than just a state, a character is more than just their title. In CK2, every person has a unique personality, with traits and features unique to them. These personality traits follow you throughout your life, from cradle to grave, but can be enhanced, increased, and expanded through education, events, and by executing certain actions. Do so with aim, and you can turn out to be a master at whatever you focus on. These features determine how you're able to conduct the game's many tasks, and when I say many, I mean many. Your stewardship skill will, for example, determine how many provinces you can effectively control, or how well you deal with certain problems relevant to the governing of the realm. Your martial skill determines whether you're a good fighter or not, and your intrigue will help you stay alive, or allow you to better execute plots against other characters. Of course, the opposite is also true, so being really bad at something makes you more vulnerable to unfortunate actions. The system essentially opens up the vast amount of options present in the game, and depending on your character's personality and skills, you'll get access to various events and occurrences throughout their life. They determine everything from your relationships with your vassals, your ability to govern, fight, and scheme, but even more than this, characters have traits which are powerful aspects of your personality. Traits come with skill modifiers built into them, and these are the real treasures of the character. You see, in CK2, you always want a character with great skills and traits. You want to avoid the traits that give you negative modifiers, and find the traits that give you the positive ones. But you're not only playing one character in CK2. Just like in real life, people die in CK2, and this means you're gonna need an heir. Heirs are characters you play after you die, and if you don't have an heir, well then your game is literally over. Losing every title means losing the game, and you can do that by being completely ravaged down to your last domain, or by having no dynasty heir. Heirs not only inherit your titles though, but also some of your character's skills and traits. Certain traits are inheritable, which means, when you're shopping for spouses, you always do well to either marry for land or for traits, as both of these are likely to make the next generation better than the last. Whoever said children are in the future clearly never played CK2, I'll tell you that much. And this is perhaps the coolest part of CK2, and it takes us back to what strategy games tend to be about, namely expansion and map painting. CK2 is all about making your way from the bottom to the top. beginning at the top and getting topper, or starting somewhere in the middle and maneuvering your way to victory. But what makes CK2 stand so far apart from other games in the genre is how versatile it really is. First of all, marriage is often a much better way of expanding here, as long as you can either kill or fight your way to potentially contested claims. This mechanic makes it so much fun to plan for long-term conquests, both the romantic and the military kind. Furthermore, in CK2, you don't really need a massive empire to have fun. Character intrigue is always something to pay attention to, which means you can actually attempt to seduce, imprison, and murder people you want to engage with. You also have an entire events and decisions screen from which you can choose to hold feasts, go for hunts, or even go on pilgrimages. What's more, everyone from dukes to kings and emperors have a council. The council has various positions, and seeing how you're always playing a game of cat and mouse with your vassals' opinion of you, giving them a position on the council provides them with a very nice bowl of milk and or cheese. Now council members take part in ruling your realm, and have several tasks to conduct depending on your needs. For example, the chancellor may be used to fabricate claim on neighboring provinces, which by the way is extremely important, since the only way to effectively expand through warfare is to have a reason for war, a casus belli. A bishop, on the other hand, allows you to improve religious relations, or indeed convert to faith in a province. Your council members have extra powers though. You see, the most powerful vassals in your realm will demand a seat on said council, and even though this will appease them to not plot against you, the council also has a powerful say over your realm, at least depending on the council laws. And this is what I love about CK2. There is just so much micromanaging here, from realm laws to council laws, all of them governing what both you and others are able to do. For example, CK2 allows you to determine which genders can inherit titles, how many of your kids get titles when you die, and how much power the ruler has versus the council. Seeing your powers expand over the years is a clear sign of progression, and the feeling of succeeding and unlocking more authority is a good one indeed. Of course, this even differs from culture to culture. For example, laws of authority and succession varies wildly from the more European feudal systems, to the Islamic decadent system, to the Byzantine imperial one. This makes it that much more fun to alternate the cultures you're playing as you'll get a lot of different flavors here. And now you might ask, Andy, CK2 sounds a whole lot like CK3. Why should I be playing this old game instead of the new one? Well, that's a very good question. And let me first say this. Crusader Kings 3 has improved a lot since launch. It had a very good foundation when it came out, but lacked a lot of the flavor and content of CK2. It has since improved quite a lot with Northern Lords, Royal Court, and Fate of Iberia. But honestly, these updates are either too regional or too superficial to be truly game-changing for every character. CK2 on the other hand, after like 8 years of updates and expansions, is so chock full of events, fun happenings, and downright insane stuff. I'm talking a full-ass papal cardinal system, councils that can take your authority away, plagues that can ravage the world, a full prosperity system that governs income and happiness, the ability to play as republics, arguably the series' best crusade system, and an absolutely insane system of holy orders, cults, and secret societies. CK2 just offers so incredibly much to do at any given time, and despite not offering as fancy visuals or modern UI, I have to confess something here. A big side of me actually prefers the visual side of CK2. Despite not being fully 3D animated, there's something a bit more charming and unique about the portraits of CK2. And even though the UI isn't as fancy, I generally prefer to the CK3 one. Yes, it might take longer to fully learn, but once you do, it makes so much sense. There are so many nice windows here, all with their own appropriate ambient sounds attached to them. On the visual side, I have to say that I'm generally not a fan of Paradox's turn away from the more complex and granular map modes. CK2 has dozens of map modes available, and my favorite one remains the political map mode, which allows us to see the colors of each entity, no matter how close to the ground you get. In CK3, this just dynamically changes to terrain, and while that's a nice option, I really don't like the lack of map modes in CK3. I also really love how the map darkens around the focused area when you zoom down. There's not even a diplomatic map mode in CK3, which is arguably even more relevant than it was in CK2. But perhaps my absolute biggest gripe with CK3, and what made me fall in love with CK2 so quickly, is the soundtrack. CK2's soundtrack is legendary, one of the best ever made for a strategy game alongside EU4, Stellaris, Hearts of Iron 4, and even Imperator Rome and Vicky 2. The songs are long, melodic, and really leave their mark on the experience. CK3 on the other hand has a completely different approach to music. It's more ambient now, more in the background, and even though the music isn't bad, it's just not there as much. And again, Even though more music has been added on later, they're just not as good or as present as what we had in CK2. Even the event music in CK3 can't really compare, as I dislike very much how they stop the moment we move away from the event window. They are relatively short jingles anyway, but CK2 really knocks CK3 out of the park in this aspect in particular, even to this day. In the end, I just really love Crusader Kings 2. I think it's such a fantastic game that somehow was way ahead of its time, and was made infinitely better with every major expansion, which to a large degree changed the way the game worked for not just a single region, but for entire continents or even all over the world. CK2 evolved into a perfect medieval simulator over the course of almost a decade, and because of this, people might say it's unfair to compare the two. But I think it's more than fair. CK3 has definitely learned from CK2 and arguably had a much better foundation than its older brother. But even though CK3's foundation was better, it was still lacking in comparison to what CK2 had become. And even now, I still find CK2 to be the better game, seeing how full of content and passion it really is. There's just something about those handcrafted event images in CK2 that moves me so much more than those generic 3D windows in CK3 do. And in this way, I really lament the quote-unquote streamlined UI in CK3. Again, Crusader Kings 3 is shaping up to be a really great game, and the community is flourishing in terms of player numbers and amazing mods, which will spell a great future for the game. But there is something about CK2 that still charms me more, and if nothing else, I really recommend playing CK2 even now, if for no other reason than to experience what a truly content-filled CK3 might feel like one day. And it feels really, really good.
You are playing the role of the King of Castile, and you are having rather a bad day. The high cost of maintaining an army has entirely depleted your treasury, and your soldiers have begun to desert. You can see it now, a Muslim invasion surging over your lands. You might reach out to your neighbors for assistance, but alas, your character fervently believes himself possessed by the devil. This has made forging alliances, well, somewhat of a challenge.
Thank you so much for watching. CK2 spellbound me for years and remains one of my favorite strategy games of all time. It will be a few years before CK3 can truly surpass it, in my book, but I really hope that day comes. But what do you think? If you enjoyed the video, I really hope you leave a like, a comment, sub to the channel, and consider becoming a patron or a channel member. Make sure to join our Discord as well. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.